26th River Talk. Today we will be talking about prescription drug regulations. Oh, this is our panel.
You guys want to introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nicole.
I'm Brody.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Eliza.
Does anyone want to start us off?
Well, basically, we're talking, we agree over here, like registration about it and having limits and stuff.
This is a good thing.
Yeah, thank
There
you.
should be limits and regulations to
Yeah,
certain prescription drugs that have a history of being abused.
Yes.
especially ones that have a history of being abused. Like, all of them should be
Regulated, but especially like opioids and
anxiety medications.
anxiety
and-
medications, any kind of stimulants.
Well, you bad apples to spoil the bunch. Why do they have to ruin it for the rest of us?
All right, and what's your guys' take?
You want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. I don't think they should be regulated, and I don't think they should be regulated because, like, even when things are regulated, people still find a way to abuse it. Like, even if you regulate it, like, how do you know that that person's going to, like, not turn around, like, go to the doctor and turn around and sell it? Like,
That is a good point, but I believe with regulations and stuff, that it would narrow it down somewhat, where it would be harder for people to get their hands on that, thus making it harder for them to get high off of it and stuff. With regulations, and if somebody went in and got some, it would be their prescription and it could be like traced back. If the person they sold it to got caught and they said, well, they sold it to me, and the cops look into their records and say, yeah, they got a prescription, they sold it, well,
it's just not that easy, because a lot of times when people sell medication, the people that are distributing the medication don't get caught. It's very common with the drug dealer. That's why they keep getting to do it. They don't get caught very easily. They have systems and connections to underground networking that makes them not able to get caught.
I
And
am
in fact,
very aware of
sometimes
that.
drug dealers work with the government by, like, calling DHS on, like, their buyers and, like, trying to get kids so that they don't look like they're dealing drugs. So, I mean, it's a very complicated system. And
I'm very aware of that.
But there's also ways to tell if somebody's selling their medication instead of actually taking it. Because
Routine
like
screening.
I have a personal example with my medication, every couple of months I have to get blood tests to make sure that it's in my system. And if it's not, and I've been renewing my prescription regularly, then my prescription automatically gets blocked. And if I don't show up for that appointment, I can't get any renewed prescriptions. And that's in my records, my medical records. So if I were to try to go anywhere else, I'd have to go through a whole process of like creating a fake identity just to go through the whole thing again. There's plenty of ways to regulate and make sure that somebody's not selling it. Like,
do you mind if I ask what you're taking medication for?
I take medication for attention deficit hyperactive disorder.
Okay.
And
So I
this-
take a stimulant medication,
And
which
this-
is like, I don't remember what it's called. It's like there's meth and pot and stuff like that, and then my medication is immediately right underneath of it.
So what
As
is-
far as regulation.
So have you tried like alternatives, like coping mechanisms for that
Yes. There's a reason I take my medication. I've been proven to be non-functional without it.
disorder?
I was in the hospital, I was tested, I'm non-functional without my medication. They know that, but yet, because I missed an appointment to get tested because I had work, to get blood drawn and everything like that, my insurance blocked my medication and I wasn't allowed to get it anymore because I missed that appointment until I made up the appointment, and then we sent in the records that proved that I was non-functional. Again, so they had new copies that were resent from the doctor's office. Only then could I get my medication again. So they do take it very seriously when people are taking these medications. And if you were to take off the regulations, there would definitely be a lot more people abusing and selling and stuff like that.
A
What's
similar,
your point for like, when you take off the regulations also, they won't have those strict records for you to get your medication.
Mm-hmm. It
So
would,
you would be able to easily get your medication.
yeah, it would be easier for me, but it would also be easier for other people. And I know for a fact, because of like, my mom's work, because she works with substance abuse and stuff like that. If they were to get rid of those regulations like that, and it were to get abused the way that it was before they were in place, then they could just end up banning it entirely, because they almost did. They almost banned Adderall and Ritalin and stuff like that, that I would need to function. It was almost made completely illegal.
and when I was younger, I had to be put on medication for ADHD, and somebody in my family stole my medication and was not only abusing it themselves, but also selling it to their friends, which is another reason, had I been going through routine screenings and stuff, I mean, this was 13 years ago, had I been going through routine screenings back then, it would have shown that I wasn't taking it, and they would have stopped the prescriptions, because it wasn't, I mean, I was still having problems with ADHD, I didn't have it in my blood or anything like that, because it was being stolen from me every month.
So doesn't that kind of just defeat your argument?
No, I'm
Because-
saying if there was screening, that wouldn't have happened, and I'm advocating
You
screening.
wouldn't have gotten your medicine.
Yeah, but it would
she
have
wasn't
stopped
getting
somebody,
medicine.
yeah, I wasn't getting it anyways. It would have stopped my relative from selling it, that's my point.
Why wasn't your relative turned in when you were getting your medication?
Because nobody noticed, I guess, I don't know. I was 7 at the time, and I tried saying, well, I'm not getting my medication, but the person who was stealing it was immediate, and they're like, oh yeah, she is. She's taking it every day.
That sounds like a baby that turns the world of you're not getting your medication issue.
Yeah, they should have been turned in, they should have, but that didn't happen.
And that doesn't defeat the point of if it had been regulated and they'd known ahead of time if they'd been testing. And
Yeah,
known that it
had I
wasn't in
been
their blood,
testing, then
It
I could have
would've
said,
been
well, they're
addressed.
stealing it, and then they would have been,
They would have
it
believed
would
her.
have, yeah, it would have been taken care of.
All right, well, this is why I think that it should be regulated. I was in the foster care system and I've been diagnosed and re-diagnosed and been on about 30 different medications for diagnoses. And there was a point where I lived in a mental institution and I was tested probably about every 2 weeks, blood was drawn to the point where there was huge scarring on my arm because they were regulating my medicine and we were in a controlled place. And I think that's abuse. I think that's abuse of the power of the medicine field.
Yeah, well, that would be an entirely different issue than just casual people who need their medication for day-to-day lives. Being, like, the whole thing with institutionalization, like, everybody knows that there's something that needs to be fixed with that, but that's kind of an entirely different issue because they don't treat regulation the
It's
same
not a
as that.
different issue when they're still getting prescription medication inside of it.
Yeah, but we're talking about, like, day-to-day, like us, that we need our medication. We're not talking about, like, actual,
Well, how are
like,
you-
that'd be like regulation in hospitals or something like that. Like, that's an entirely different.
People live
thing.
there. People live their lives there. They go to school there. They live as normal as they can within the institution. It's like a residential school setting.
Yeah.
And it should be, like, how are you going to regulate
But-
that in-depthly to the point where people, like, where's the privacy there? Where's any of the sort of freedom, like American freedom? Like, do you have to, like, regulate, like,
But if you're in an institution like
it's
that,
like a police state?
if you're
Like,
in an institution like that, it's because somebody, whether it's you personally or the state or something like that, decided that you needed to be regulated like that. That's not the same situation. If somebody is in an institution like that, it's because for some reason or another, whether it's justified or not, somebody decided that you needed to be regulated because of some outside situation. They're going to be more strict because of the situation that you're in. That's just part of it. But that's a whole different thing if it's abuse or not, because that has to do with the institution of mental hospitals and stuff like that, rather than just getting casual
Family
prescription
unit is an
medication.
institution itself, and to an extent, especially if you're living there. It's a different kind of institution, but the prescription drugs, they don't change. Like they might go to somebody in an institution, they might go to somebody in a family over here, they go all over. How are you gonna regulate that? Especially with like what I was talking about with dealers and everything, like when they're so hard to catch anyway. I mean, I just went to it was a convention for stop abuse, like stop abusing drugs and stop addiction. It was a stop addiction now convention, and it was at the band shell in Clinton, Iowa, and there was so many people talking about how we are not able to catch these drug dealers because they have developed like their underground systems. They've essentially developed like a black market government to go through to distribute these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, if they're being that sneaky, they're gonna find people to go ahead and get these prescriptions, like convincing, like, they know what they're doing. They know how to go in there and how to abuse the system or pull people that have a mental illness to their favor.
Kind of how my relative was using me to get medication.
Yeah.
I
But they're
get what you're
they're
saying.
going to go
I get
ahead
what
and
you're
target
saying.
people that probably don't have family, probably have like some kind of mental illness, like schizophrenia. Like I've talked to a friend who literally had one of their friends' dads. Their whole house got completely demolished because they had schizophrenia and they were like allowing drug dealers to come in. How are we supposed to protect these people with mental illnesses that are vulnerable? If, you know, it's a very huge problem. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but
I have a question. You say these things happen and like despite regulation. How would having not regulation stop that?
how would having not regulation stop that? Not having regulation, I mean, it wouldn't stop it completely, but criminalization and regulation is two different ballparks there. I mean, they come together to a point, but either criminalization or restitution or education, like, needs to step in there in between, because people need to be more educated on these matters. People need to be like a little bit more like educated when they're talking about, hold on, let me catch my thoughts here. Like, people need to be more educated about these medicines. I mean, DARE does a pretty accurate job, I guess, what they can do to them. But I guess criminalization, do I think criminalization is always the answer when people are abusing drugs? No. But is it the answer sometimes? Like in the case of like people that are abusing drugs and like selling them and shooting people because they're selling them? Probably, because these people shouldn't be in society. They should be in, you know, in closed space where they can't hurt people. So.
Sort of building up to the criminalization argument. I just want to like take a step back. What is the issue with allowing the general public to have access to these drugs?
There's no issue with allowing the general public to have access to the drugs if they need them. But like I said earlier, if we were to just take away all the regulations and anybody could get the medication just through a prescription, then there'd be more and more people abusing it, and that would cause more problems. That would give more people the opportunity to deal drugs, rather than just like the big underground thing that's going to be a problem no matter what you do, because they'll always find a way around the system. That opens it up to people like 14-year-old me to sell my pills to like $10 a pop to people at school. That would allow people to start that from a younger age because there's no regulation, anything like that. That could allow more people to end up in that lifestyle because it's easy for me to get these drugs. It's easy for me to make money off of them. Like, I pay $8 a bottle for a bottle of my generics of my pills with my insurance. If I sell them for $10 a pill, I'm making a lot of money off of that. But I know because of regulation, I mean, I wouldn't anyway, but because of regulation, I can't sell those. So that, in that way, it would stop regular people like me from thinking, I'm in a hard spot financially, I'm just gonna sell my drugs.
Do we have a statistic that proves that the laxer the laws are in certain states, that the more they're abused?
I don't know I don't know numbers off the top of my head, but I do know from several of my own mom's grant regulation things and stuff like that, but research that she had to do to keep her grants, that there is proof of several societies that when they take off the regulations on stuff like that, it can end up collapsing the whole thing, because more and more people are buying it and abusing it, and there's more signs of abuse with it, more people dying of overdoses and stuff like that, until eventually regular prescription medications that some people need just end up getting banned entirely. Like I said, a couple of years ago, they almost entirely banned Adderall and Ritalin, which would have left me with no medication to take. And like I said, I'm non-functional. I would not have been able to exist in regular society if they had done that. Whereas with regulation, which I'm getting it legally, I'm getting it for something that I need. I don't have a problem going through those hoops. Whereas somebody who's getting it to use it illegally, they're going to have a problem with the hoops, and sometimes they'll just give up on it because what's the point?
Well, there's also a lack of medical practitioners in the United States. Are they like making it so it's harder with your schedule to make appointments? Because I know you said you didn't
No,
mind
they're really-
going through the hoops, but.
I don't mind going through the hoops. They're really easy with schedule, like with the one appointment. It was kind of my fault because I should have called and rescheduled it when I knew that there was work, but I'd forgotten about the appointment. So that one was on me. It wasn't like they were like, oh, you can't come in on this exact day. Too bad you don't get your meds. That was on me for forgetting that I had the appointment and going to work. And they were quick to work with me because they know I've never had a problem in the past because it's in my medical records. Whereas if they didn't have any regulation or anything like that, and I had skipped out on an appointment or started acting sketchy, they wouldn't have that written down to know that there's a good chance that I'm selling my medications or that I'm abusing these drugs. They wouldn't have that information, which means that they also couldn't work with patients like me who do need that because they don't have the records to know what I need for help. So regulation isn't just like here or there, like it actually does a lot of help.
Yeah, I mean, you know what you're taking your meds for. I think it's important that people know what they're taking their meds for, what diagnoses they have.
Yeah, and definitely education is important with it, and doctors should not prescribe medications without educating patients for it. Like, I had, my doctor retired, and I had like a random other doctor who I ended up switching really quick from, and because she just randomly like gave me a prescription after a normal appointment for some kind of like muscle relaxers or something,
Yeah.
and told me I had to take them without telling me why. And I hated them, and they messed with my meds, and she shouldn't have prescribed them according to my new doctor, because what I was describing as a problem had nothing to do with needing muscle relaxers.
So do you think doctors should also communicate with each
Doctor-
other?
That's another, but that would also be another thing with regulation, is the education part. If you're regulating medications properly, you'd also be requiring doctors to educate their patients on why they're taking the medications they're taking, what other steps they could be taking if they decide they want to go off of the medication, what are the steps, if the medication isn't working, what other medications are available. That's a big thing with regulation. Like if things weren't regulated, I wouldn't have the information I have on my own diagnosis. I go through all the hoops, and we've done all the regulation, and I've gone and done studies like overnight, over weeks at University of Iowa. Like we went through all those hoops. I went through all the regulation. So now we have a really detailed knowledge of what I need and how my medication needs to be and what works because of that regulation. If they didn't have stuff like that, I would probably not even be taking medication right now, and I probably wouldn't be here because I wouldn't be able to focus or exist in like a classroom. Like,
Following up on your story of your doctor, another thing that needs to be looked at more is doctors who literally push pills on people.
Yeah.
I had a doctor for my migraines that I've suffered from them since I was a little kid. I had a doctor who literally took pain medication, never even tried to find out why I was getting the migraines or find out if an alternative route could be taken. He took pain medication. He's like, okay, I want you to try this one. Well, when that one didn't work, oh, here's another one. He prescribed me one that I was actually allergic to that almost killed me. I ended up in the hospital from it. And he's like, oh, well, you must have been taking too much. They did my blood work. It